beginning slides of 64 progress to let everybody know what's going on and how it all started. This is all thanks to James, one of my buddies who had to get rid of this truck, and Preston Callahan from Callahan Automotive and Diesel. Basically, this truck started out as a service ranger truck in Colorado. His grandfather picked it up and had brought it down from Colorado to Arizona. They got a hold of a guy who went and ripped out the engine for a high school shop project and never completed the job. James fell into some issues to where he had to get rid of the truck, so I went and grabbed it from him with Preston Callahan. It was very eventful, but well worth it. I held on to it for a couple of years, and I'm at now to where I have a lovely wife who had pushed me to continue the project instead of selling it. I had met up with Jake, who owns the Backyard Customs, who makes the brackets for the Crown Vic suspension conversion kit. I've always thought about doing a Crown Vic swap. After I sold my 55 Ford that I had, I thought it would be pretty cool, and then all of a sudden I see everybody doing them. So I figured I might as well jump on the bandwagon and figure it out. So I had met up with Jake to purchase these brackets, and lo and behold, he only lives like maybe 15 miles from my mom and dad's house, which I was already headed up there anyways to visit my mom and dad in Ogden, Utah. So as soon as I got back, I started ripping and tearing into the truck, took the hood off, took a lot of the wiring and everything out of it, started loosening up the bolts for the front fenders, pulled the whole front clip off of the truck and got it all prepped and ready for the front axles to be removed. Yes, those are solid front axles. This was a F250 64, and I wanted to make it into an F150 with independent front and rear suspension and a 4.6 4-valve. So I started ripping and tearing into the front axles to get everything mocked up and ready to go. It was kind of painful to get all the rivets out. Yes, you got to remember this is 1964, so a lot of these had factory rivets that held all the brackets in. There wasn't any bolts, there wasn't any welding, it was strictly rivets. And if any of you guys had pulled apart any of the rivet suspension or ball joints or anything like that, you can tell that it's not an easy task. You have to cut the rivet heads off and then take an air chisel and hopefully pound out the rivets out. If not, you're beating those brackets apart until they come loose. So started mocking everything up after I got everything cleaned up and where everything needed to sit. Measured. Yes, there's a lot of people who saw me work on this and said, well, why don't you just weld it in? Why don't you just put the axle where you need it and start cutting it? No, I wanted to make sure that the axle and everything was going to sit in straight. So it took me, I think it was 4 weeks to actually sit down and measure everything out and make sure that it was square, on top of doing my normal working full time. But on the side, I would be in the garage and working on this truck to get it all squared away. So after finishing the axle, I put the front clip on. Was in a hurry, had to do it while it was dark. Super excited to see what it looked like. So the next morning I took another picture of it, get it out in the daylight, see what's going on. Plenty of room to spare inside the engine bay for the engine. So I went and picked up a Mark 8, has the 4.6 4-valve engine inside of it. Started ripping out the engine out of the Mark 8, then started putting that into the truck. Put the new engine in and everything fit perfect. It was a little tight, but it sat perfectly fine in there. there you guys have it, the front suspension and the engine install for the 64 Progress.